This is a meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. Apologize for being just a little bit late. Staff got hung up in the elevator turnover stuff. First bill is House Bill 818. Representative Parsons, I'm going to assign it to the Income Tax Subcommittee. Representative Parsons, you want to explain your bill?
Thank you, Chairman. This just adds some language to the existing code relating to an income tax credit for clean energy property, and it just updates the language to include something that's apparently normally used today that maybe wasn't used when the bill was when the code was originally written. It just adds that the income tax credit is good for current language says Energy Star certified geothermal pump systems, and then it adds commercial 3-phase geothermal pump systems that meet the Energy Star efficiency requirements. This has to do, it has to do with geothermal heating and cooling systems.
Questions of the author? Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. The last line of the amendment that says energy efficient ratio and coefficient of performance, does that only apply to the 3-phase or does it apply to both systems?
It's my understanding that does apply to the 3-phase. That wasn't in the language before, and when I talked to Legislative Counsel, in fact, I think the original language I gave her just had the acronyms in there, and we had to find out exactly what they meant, or find out what the whole word is. So yeah, that's added in relation to the 3-phase.
Just the 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Representative Sims has a question.
No.
Oh, okay. Any further questions of the author? Thank you, Representative Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next is House Bill 826 by Representative Peake, who is now in the room. If the Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 826 by Representative Peake and others to amend Title 48 of the Official Code relating to revenue and taxation so as to provide that any taxes imposed on cigars and little cigars on or after January 1st, 2013 shall be collected and paid through the use of stamps, to provide for definitions, establish the rate of the tax on certain tobacco products, to provide that the Commissioner of Revenue shall provide by regulation for stamps to be affixed to cigars and little cigars prior to April 10th, 2013.
Public policy and public finance and policy. Representative Peake, the author of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll bore with a whole lot of details, but basically there's a problem in our state where cigars that are taxed at 23% excise tax, legitimate distributors are paying that excise tax and competing with other retailers who are getting a big old drive down to Florida where there's 0% excise tax, getting a whole truckload of cigars, bringing them back to Georgia and selling them at a substantial discount and not paying the 23% excise tax. This bill basically deals with that in 4 ways. It increases the penalties and fines for those that are caught smuggling, which is what it is, smuggling. Secondly, require licensing for tobacco retailers. Third, require all tobacco products be stored in a facility registered to the business. And fourth, that some sort of stamp or inventory tracking mechanism be placed on the cigars similar to what is used for cigarettes. There is a significant amount of revenue that is being lost in our state due to this illegal activity, and this bill will hopefully address that. Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions or wait till later at subcommittee, whatever your preference.
Questions of the author? No questions of the author.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Skip it till you get it. House Bill 834 by Representative Bell. Is Representative Bell here? He's not here. Okay. House Bill 846, Representative Knight. Mr. Secretary, if you'll read the caption.
House Bill 846 by Representative Knight and Representative Peake to amend Title 48 of the Official Code annotated relating to revenue and taxation so as to change various administrative and procedural requirements of the Department of Revenue to provide procedures with respect to the publication of letter rulings, to define the term ruling, and to substantially modernize the provisions governing the Commissioner's levy and sale of personal property.
Public Finance and Policy. Representative Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I present this bill. We're trying to clean up some of the administrative issues that the department has brought to us. Basically, this bill does three things. It looks at the authority to redact and publish taxpayer letter rulings, provides the Department of Revenue to redact and publish these excuse me, I'm tongue-tied this afternoon. Publish letter rulings with input of on redactions from taxpayers. Another section of the bill provides for the electronic copies of tax executions as originals. And the third section is compliance, modernize the Department of Revenue auction authority for seized properties.
Questions of the author. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Knight, Chairman Knight, regards to the redaction, and we can get to this later, is it the idea of the redaction to protect the identity of the taxpayer or the details of the letter ruling?
I think it's the taxpayer.
Further questions of the author. Thank you, Representative Knight. Is Representative Rice here?
No, sir.
House Bill 862 by Representative Martin. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 862 by Representative Martin and Sheldon to amend Article 2, Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code relating to imposition rate, computation of income taxes and exemptions so as to broaden the types of tax liabilities subject to offset by a qualified education tax credit.
Income Tax Subcommittee. Representative Martin.
Mr. Chairman, this bill simply seeks to add two indirect taxes to those taxes that may be credit may be claimed against when contributing to the previously passed student scholarship fund. Those indirect taxes would be the insurance premium tax and taxes paid on alcoholic beverages. The idea is just to allow businesses that aren't subject to income tax but have taxed in a different way to participate equally in the scholarship fund.
Questions of the author. Yes, sees none. Thank you, Representative Martin. House Bill 864 by Representative Harbin. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 864 by Representative Harbin and others to amend Part 2, Article 1, Chapter 48, Title 48 of the Official Code relating to the imposition rate, collection, and assessment of sales and use taxes so as to provide that retailers may, under certain circumstances, advertise that the retailer will pay the purchaser sales and use tax on a transaction and to provide for related matters.
Sales Tax Subcommittee. Representative Harbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really just simply clarifying notification. If you're advertising that you are paying the sales tax on an item, this just actually says on the receipt. If you say that, then you have to actually pay it. We're just clarifying the language with some information to require the retailer not to advertise unless they are actually paying that. They can't just imply that it's being paid when the tax has not been paid.
Questions of the author. Thank you, Representative Harbin. House Bill 868 by Representative Collins. The Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 868 by Representative Collins and others to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code relating to the imposition, computation, and exemptions from state income tax so as to provide for the comprehensive provision of income tax credits for business enterprises located in less developed areas, designated by tiers for business enterprises located in less developed areas consisting of contiguous census tracts for existing manufacturing and telecommunications facilities located in certain tier counties and for establishing new job new quality jobs or relocating quality jobs.
Income Tax Subcommittee, Chair recognizes the Governor's Floor Leader, Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the part of the competitive initiative that the governor had worked on throughout the year. It's also a bill we had dropped last year and have went back and revised since then. We're taking into account the tier system that's currently used in Georgia, with Tier 1, Tier 2 counties receiving the highest credits concerning per jobs. This will restructure that, maintaining the credits for the lower income counties, but also giving some incentive for the more wealthier counties as well, because there's just a simple need that very few companies who would actually relocate to Atlanta would probably never look at a very rural location. We just need to look at that in a sense. As well as also lowering the job creation threshold. In Tier 1, it would go from 5 jobs to 2. For example, Tier 4 would go to 25 to 10. It also creates a $250 bonus credit for existing industries at all tier levels. Lowers the job creation threshold for quality job tax credits. When it's currently 50, would go down to 15. It also expands the R&D tax credit and the port tax credit bonus as well.
Questions of the author, Representative Sims.
To the Governor's Floor Leader, Representative Collins, do you have a fiscal note on this?
It has been asked for, and we're currently waiting on it. We're approximately looking at approximately $68 million.
That's a
How you know that?
Because that was the estimates that we've done prior to now.
Okay.
They were projecting because they were looking at how the credits would work.
$68 million cut?
Yes.
Wow. Representative Harbin has a question.
Just to clarify that, $68 million, but that's only spent if we're
Only
bringing the
spent
jobs
if
in.
right.
So that's just a guesstimate. And if we've spent the 68, we're actually growing Georgia, which is what your intention is to do here, correct?
Exactly, and that was what we get into in a longer discussion here. As far as looking at what cuts, it would have to be if it's actually used, but you also have to take into account the jobs that are actually being created
Right.
and the income that's being brought in.
I mean, if we don't bring any jobs, you aren't spending any of the money anyway.
Exactly. It's not being used, it's not being used.
Representative Sims has another.
Follow on. And you expect to get your fiscal note back this week?
We're expecting it back any time now.
Is there any reason do you have any control over OPB over there at all? I've been waiting on one for 19 months, but I won't be. But after I drop that bill today, we ain't gonna be waiting anymore.
Representative Sims, the members can't order physical notes. The chairman of this committee does. So. Any further questions of the author? Yes, Representative Parsons.
Thank you. I'm just looking through here real quickly, but for an example, on page 2, line 41, it's talking about the facilities and kind of businesses. It says existing business enterprise means any business or the headquarters of such business which has operated for the immediately preceding 3 years, a facility in this state which is engaged in manufacturing, and then it adds a language including but not limited to the manufacturing of alternative energy products for use in solar, wind, battery, bioenergy, biofuel, and electric vehicle enterprises, and then it goes on from there, which is, I mean, that's all good. But I'm just wondering, what exactly, when it says, but not limited to, what exactly are you trying to say here?
I think from the perspective, what we're doing here in that sentence is just adding these other industries that were excluded from the incentives currently.
I mean,
and if there be others that would come in that would fall under this incentive tax credit.
I mean, I got no problem. It just seems like it's just open. Why would you even?
Well, if you want to get into it even further, the language right before that, I agree with you, is sort of stilted in its sense as well. But I think that's the only intent is to add some that are currently banned from the incentives, which would be the biomedical, and the alternative energy industries there.
I mean, I've got no problem with it. It just seems like that. I mean, it just seems like that with that language, anything then would be applicable to this. So just a question. Thank you.
Something we can look at. Thank you.
Any further questions of the author? Thank you, Representative Collins. House Bill 873 by Representative Reese. Mr. Secretary.
House Bill 873 by Representative Reese and others to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to the imposition rate and computation of income tax so as to provide for a state income tax credit with respect to certain volunteer firefighters.
Income Tax Subcommittee, Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, having just recognized our firefighters from across the state today, I'm sure all of you recognize the important job they play in our safety of our homes and our families. Many of us live in areas where volunteer firefighters is all we have, or maybe one person at the local fire hall and the rest of the department are volunteers. These men and women spend money out of their own pockets for their transportation to and from fires. In many cases, I had someone tell me last night that their transportation cost was over $1,000 a year. Many of these departments do not fully fund the equipment that's required, the suits that are required. And this bill would simply grant a $200 tax credit to those volunteer firemen or those volunteer firemen who were in a combination fire department. And it would not be retroactive to last year. If all of it was not used this year, it could be used the next year. But they would have to be a member of a fire department for 1 year and have completed the first level of training, working towards certification.
Questions of the Alderman? Thank you, Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
House Bill 890 by Representative Parsons. Oh, income tax. 890.
I don't have it in my book. Mr. Chairman. House Bill 890 by Representative Parsons and others to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code relating to the imposition rate, computation, exemptions regarding income tax so as to provide for an income tax credit with respect to certain trucks and taxis that are fueled by natural gas.
Income Tax Subcommittee. Representative Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. This bill would provide an income tax credit for the purchase of heavy trucks that use compressed natural gas, also for taxis. It would also provide an income tax credit for the construction of compressed natural gas fueling stations, which would be aimed at smaller entrepreneurs who would want to build those and have more of them out for the availability of fleets or individuals who use natural gas in their compressed natural gas in their vehicles.
Representative Parsons, Chair has a question.
Yes, sir.
On page 2, if my math is correct, the tax credit would be $20,000 per truck, or 80% of the cost of the truck, whichever is less, and those tax credits would be $15 million in 2013 and $25 million in each year from 2014 through 2017. And additionally, in Section 2, $25,000 tax credit for refueling stations, $500,000 a year. That's $117.5 million. And I didn't hear you say what the purpose of the bill is. Why are you proposing that we spend $117 million?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman. I mean, there are several reasons I would start with the fact that the availability of natural gas over the last several years, the shale gas discoveries have produced a supply of natural gas in our country. It's kind of like a gift to us that we didn't even know was there a few years ago. that's estimated that we have 120 years, and probably it's continuing to be found, probably a couple hundred at least years of natural gas, which has brought and then also the American technology that's developed the ways to get that gas out through horizontal drilling. It's brought the price of natural gas down dramatically. So this is a fuel that can be used less expensively than petroleum products are imported. So it's an opportunity to get off the foreign oil. Number one, it's cleaner burning. It also helps with the environment, and this is a way to generate and to enhance and get more of these stations out there, more of these vehicles on the road.
This will be my final question, but if natural gas is less expensive and more efficient, well, why wouldn't the free market take care of that? Well, why do we have to provide taxpayer dollars?
Well, I think it's a way to. It's a good and great question, Chairman. It's not moving quickly enough. I mean, as you know, and members of the committee know, there are examples of us using tax dollars in many cases to get things going, to provide a kickstart to different things. I mean, the bill that the governor just brought to us a while ago is an example of that, and it's something that's good for Georgia. It puts us in a leadership position. I will say this, and it's not it's not to deflect any questions or criticism of the bill. It's actually not my bill. It's actually Senator Tollison's bill. He can't introduce it in the Senate, obviously, because it's a tax-related bill, so he's asked me to introduce it over here. It is something that he and I have worked on over the last several months. And I would also say, Mr. Chairman, if we can get it into subcommittee, I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to the subcommittee looking at it and working the bill and helping perfect the bill. I mean, there may be changes that need to be made, certainly. And but I would certainly like to get it in and work with the subcommittee on getting a good bill out.
Yes, sir. It is in the income tax subcommittee, and you can certainly have a full and a fair hearing. Any additional questions by members of the committee? Representative Martin.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I also signed that legislation and to answer the chair's question, because $117 million in credits is a lot over those 5 years, but I also and the chair certainly knows that $100 million. The state will have a $100 billion budget over that same time frame. The idea is this industry that would cut the payback time for these large fleets, sometimes from 6 to 3 years, 4 to 2 years, and get these stations built out there. Without these stations, you and I and all of our 9 million citizens in Georgia will not go to a natural gas vehicle because of the fear of what they call fuel scares. Basically, you're not being able to fuel your vehicle. So the hope would be that 117 million over that 5-year period that the state, in fact, raises 100 billion would allow the stations to propagate across the state and allow our citizens to purchase vehicles that run on this fuel in the free market to use United States resources. So I understand it is a large cost and look forward to the conversation, but I think it is something that we could do in Georgia and become a leader, and I think the payback would be to Georgians over the time as those fueling options become available in the free market.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add one thing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I appreciate the questions and opportunity to speak about this just a little bit. Over the last 6 months especially, but over the last year, I've attended a lot of conferences across the country on energy and energy policy and things of that nature, and meet with people from a lot of different states. Usually the states that are kind of leading the forefront are states that are energy producing states. We have states that have great reserves of coal. Some of these states are fortunate to have those shale gas fields in their states. You have the Gulf states. Georgia is a state that we have no natural sources of energy such as petroleum or coal or natural gas. And from my perspective, we need to take some steps to become a leader in Georgia with what we can do. And I think this is a way by encouraging the use of lesser expensive fuels to do things that will make our atmosphere more cleaner, and to take a leadership role in a state that has no natural sources of energy. I think it will help to put us in a leadership role where people look to us and know that we do have a real interest in energy in this state, and we're looking forward, and we're looking to invite people here, and we want to create a city. I know the city of Atlanta is interested in clean air, and getting taxis are part of this, and to show the nation and the world what Georgia can do here in a leadership role.
President Beasley Teague has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got really two. One, I want to know, are we talking about companies that are traded, you can go and buy stock in these companies so that they're actually traded with public stock, and we're going to give them tax credit? Is that what we're talking about doing, just promoting a different type of business, a different, help me with that.
No, we're not promoting a different kind of business. We're promoting the use of natural gas, in particular as as compressed natural gas. It's just like any other subsidy or any other thing like this. I mean, some of it could be private companies, it could be corporations. I mean, it could be a proprietorship. I mean, it could be anything.
Okay, my question: can we buy stock in the company? Are they traded openly where we can buy stock?
Well, there are no companies that are defined in the bill.
Okay, no. I mean, but the industry as a whole, will there, when they come in to do natural gas, will they have stock that they'll sell on the open market?
In the industry itself, I mean, there are a lot of different companies and a lot of different organizations, a lot of different entities. Some of them would be publicly traded corporations. Would most likely, yes.
Okay, I'll just trying to get.
I mean, it's very possible. I don't know who or what, but I would say most likely yes. The answer would be yes. But when we're not trying to promote any particular corporation, it's the use of compressed natural gas.
Okay. Then my other question. And I'm sorry, I didn't read the bill. I just listened at the amount of money that we're talking about here. As to sometimes, we help people with startup, with things. That's what you're trying to do, jumpstart them. I mean, saying, hey, you don't have to. You get tax exempt, so you'll be able to do this in my district or your district, or because I've been around the country and I've seen some of the companies that some of the places that I visited that do something similar, not quite like this.
It could be any. It could. I mean, yes. I mean, it's a good question. It could be any company. It could be in your district, in my district. It could be anywhere. I mean, it could theoretically be any place in the state.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that could actually. I mean, it could benefit your area as much as anybody else's.
Representative Martin.
I know we need to move on, Mr. Chairman. Just to give Representative Beasley Teague an answer, this would perhaps companies that want to move their fleets. It might cost an extra $50,000 to buy a large truck that uses compressed natural gas, and to help them defray that cost is what the credit's for. This could be large fleets from over-the-road companies. It could be people that are delivering. It could be waste companies are a good user of it. So it would be people to help them defray the additional cost of a truck as opposed to what a diesel version would cost.
Representative Martin, I think it's true that the bill doesn't specify who gets it. It's just who buys it.
Yes, sir. I mean,
and that can be an individual,
yes,
or a group of individuals, or a company, or
entrepreneur, or
non-profit, or whatever. So, okay. Any further questions of the author? Thank you, Representative Parsons. House Bill 896 by Representative Coleman.
House Bill 896 by Representative Coleman and others to amend Part 2, Article 3, Chapter 8, Title 48 of the Official Code relating to sales tax for educational purposes so as to change certain provisions regarding the distribution of sales tax for educational purposes.
Sales Tax Subcommittee, Representative Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bring before you a enabling piece of legislation that's accompanying a House Resolution 1150 that's already passed and waiting in rules to be passed, to be moved out. That's a constitutional amendment. And what this basically does is the constitutional amendment is you have 180 school systems in this state. 21 of them are city systems, 159 are county systems. And many times when you want to pass an ESPLOS, referendum for school construction, you have to get agreement by the Constitution. Says you have to get an agreement between the city and the county to do it, and they call it, and they agree on the amount. Supposedly, do it by FTE, full-time student equivalent. But what's happened? 4 of the city systems have contracted or worked with counties, and they're asking for more. I know of a couple of systems that they were entitled to $2 million, but they needed $10 million to build a school, so they told the county, "I'll help call it if you'll give me the $10 million," which they did, and did that. So this simply is straightening that out and saying that when you do these referendums, that money will be distributed based on FTE that we thought it would be, but it hasn't been. This just clarifies that. It has a constitutional amendment, and the way the amendment reads is, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to provide that sales tax and use tax for educational purposes shall only be distributed on the basis of full-time equivalent student count when distributed between a city system and a county. And this will be the enabling legislation to accompany it.
Any questions of the author? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much.
House Bill 916, Representative Knight.
House Bill 916 by Representative Knight and others to amend Code Section 48.5.7.4 of the Official Code relating to bona fide conservation use property so as to change certain qualifications and restrictions regarding covenants and to provide for exceptions.
Ad valorem subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This bill is trying to fix 2 issues. One main issue that we've heard is that some of our bona fide uses are having a hard time proving that to our local governments, especially when in the area of farm issues. So what we've done is we've come in and said that basically if that property owner can show where they filed a Form 8, Federal IRS Form 4835, which is a farm rental schedule, or a Schedule F, which is the farm schedule on their federal income taxes, that's providing some evidence that they are actively engaged in a farm activity. The other part is dealing with the contiguous issue. I think this committee dealt with this last year on, I think it was the FLIPA, and we're seeking to do that on the conservation use property. So that's the bill.
Question to the author. Hearing none, thank you, Representative Knight. House Bill 450 has been recommitted to this committee, and I will also recommit it to the Public Finance and Policy Subcommittee. That's Representative Chuck Sims, House Bill 450. That completes our first readers. Now we'll move on to the calendar. House Bill 729, Representative Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the annual IRC update bill. You probably won't see a shorter one, or you probably haven't seen a shorter one in a long time. Thanks to the Congress in D.C., the stalemate has pretty much kept a lot of the tax code laws up there. Nothing's happened over the last year. So basically the only change from the IRC level is the fact that regards to the self-employment withholdings, and at the federal level, as we know, they continue to exempt that. So what's happening is we're seeing a little bit of a increase at the Georgia level because there is no deduction coming through at the federal level. So it's basically less than $1 million that we're seeing in 2012. And that's basically it for the IRC code. We do have a few other fixes that we're going to look at here. Section 2 of the bill, we're basically striking the 1/4 of a mil. If you remember, the state of Georgia is getting out of the property tax business, and we're doing that gradually. And the language in Section 2 simply reflects the decrease in the property tax mills, as you see. 0.25, 0.2, 0.15, 0.1, 0.05, and then finally in 2016, 0 mills. So that's Section 2. Section 3, we're going back. There was some language that was needed in our streamlined sales tax regarding a tract lease, which is a terminal rental adjustment clause, and which guarantees the businesses a certain residual price for a vehicle when a lease expires. We're putting language in to clarify that. I think the department had rules and regulations, but we want to simply put this in code. The industry had asked for it. And then in Section 4, again with streamlined sales tax, it's come to our attention that there are some insulin that is not dispensed by prescription, and under our existing code, that was not exempt. So we're coming in. We're saying if there is insulin, regardless if it's dispensed with a prescription, that is tax exempt, and that is all to this year's IRC update.
Questions of the author? Representative Martin.
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Knight, did you address the change on line 107? I'm trying to get my mind around what we're trying to do there with the vehicle.
Is that the track lease?
Is that where that falls along to the track lease as well?
Yeah, let me get that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah,
it just is a follow on to the page 3, 75, 76.
Yes.
Okay.
Representative Peak.
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Knight, is this is the bill that we normally don't pass till about April 1st?
Yes, you're right, and we certainly appreciate the committee's hard work to get this out, even though it was a lot shorter this year. But we hope that this committee will pass it out so that we can get it on to the Senate, and hopefully get this out so that everyone filing income taxes this year will can go ahead and do it with a surety of any changes to the Georgia Code.
Well, that is great work to get that done. One question: we have had some discrepancies between the state and federal in the prior years on Section 179. If you remember, for that,
yeah.
there was maximums that were allowed at the federal level, were not allowed at the state level. Is that still a discrepancy in this year? And you're not going to charge me $100 an hour for this answer, are you?
No,
or you're more expensive than that,
a little bit more than that.
Yeah, $100.
No, I don't think it's in there.
Okay, all right.
So there are no changes.
I know there was a discrepancy difference last year, and so okay.
All right.
Any further questions of the author? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the committee? Motion made and seconded to do pass. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. It's done. Thank you. House Bill 289, Representative Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a population bill amendment. As you well know, the Constitution, Georgia Constitution 1983, did away with population bills. However, the General Assembly has the authority to define what population bills are, and accepted by general law any bills that existed as of July 1, 1988. And in this case, Butts County had a population bill in place that is now listed as Subpart L under the homestead exemptions. So this is going to homestead exemptions for ad valorem taxes, and where property has is a leased property. It's been there for 3 years prior to the application for homestead exemption, and the property is also the improvements on the property are owned by the tenant of the property. Then those things would be exempt. This is commonly referred to as an homestead exemption for the Georgia power lots that are located along Lake Jackson, and that exemption has been in place prior to July 1, 1988, and we're just going to update the population numbers with the current population numbers for Butts County, and we have adjusted them. Jeremy's helped me with the adjustment of the population numbers in the Office of Reapportionment, and those numbers are set forth in the bill, the substitute that you have before you. These numbers would put would narrowly define the exemption only to Butts County, missing Mitchell County by about 2 people, and missing Fannin County by about 32 people. So that's where we've drawn it, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Questions of the author. Representative Beasley Teague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I saw a moving truck going toward Butts County today, and about 30 people moved in. What you gonna do? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think when we get to the 2020 census, we'll have to make another adjustment.
Okay.
Further questions of the author. Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the committee? Second. Motion made and seconded and do pass. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Representative Teasley, House Bill 407.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring before you House Bill 407. You should have the LC number LC 371345S. There was a little bit of confusion before that. Previous version was 1320, I believe. Just want to make sure you have 1345.
You want to repeat that one more time?
Surely. The LC number that I'm working off of is LC 371345S. There was a previous version which I believe was 1320.
Everybody got that version? Okay. You may proceed.
Okay. What this is the same thing that Representative Welch just brought. Just this deals with actually DeKalb County and Cobb County. The reason that we have the different LC numbers is we added the DeKalb portion. I talked to Representative Jacobs about this as well. In Section B there on line 11, that subsection B there is dealing with DeKalb County, which is the only county between 690 and 800,000. I believe DeKalb County is at 691 right now. And then if you flip over to page 2, in subsection E, dealing with Cobb County, changing it to 680 to 690, and Cobb County is currently at 688,000 or thereabouts. I haven't seen any moving trucks. I don't know if there have been enough moving trucks moving into DeKalb and Cobb to make a difference there, but this is a very similar bill to what Representative Welch brought.
Questions of the author? Yes, sees none. What's the pleasure, committee? Move second. Motion made and seconded. Do pass. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Representative Teasley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
House Bill 634, Representative Shelton. Representative Harrell, are you her designee?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, present House Bill 634. Again, this bill affects Gwinnett County only, preserves the method Gwinnett uses to apply interest rates on installment payments for their ad valorem taxes. It also is a population bill that adjusts the population for Gwinnett. It's shown on line 14 from 800 to 900. It'll preserve Gwinnett County's ability to bill 1% per month interest on our ad valorem taxes. Rather than failing to do this, we would be characterized with Fulton County, and that interest rate would change, and it would not. This bill affects no other counties other than Gwinnett.
Questions of the author? Just sees none. What's the pleasure, committee? Second. Motion made and seconded to do pass. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. To members of the committee, thank you very much for your attendance today. This meeting is adjourned.